Hi, Turning Point. Good morning. It is great to be together again, and it's great to have a chance to sing and to be led in musical worship. Thank you, worship team. We love you so much. We need you desperately now more than ever, and thank you for helping us to really come into the presence of God and to feel the Spirit. Also, I want to say thank you to Jay for leading our thoughts in communion and reminding us of the heart of God expressed in the Good Samaritan. And we want to be people that don't pass by on the other side, especially now during these times. So it was great to hear those thoughts. Look forward to being able to share some, just to have a conversation today. This is less of a message, less of a sermon, more of a conversation. But before I do that, I do want to congratulate Daniel and Taylor Bolton, and they are expecting a baby girl. And so they and their son Trey will have a little sister, and they'll have a baby girl soon. So congratulations, guys. We love you. And we love all of you, whether you're tuning in locally or around the country. Thank you for being a part of this experience together. So we are in quite a moment, are we not? I feel like I've really been wrestling with, okay, so where do we go from here? Now that we're in this moment, we are the church and we have a timeless message. We have a universal message of love, of reconciliation to God, of Jesus being king, of us making disciples and loving our neighbors that never changes. So it's a timeless message, but we are called to give it and to administer it and to steward it in a contemporary context. And these times are unlike any we've been in. And so I'm reminded of one of my favorite passages in 1 Chronicles 12, and it describes them as men who understood the times and knew what Israel should do. They understood the times and knew what Israel should do. And I feel I'm asking God, I'm saying, Spirit, please help me, help us, help Turning Point, help us to understand these times and know what we should do as a Jesus community. There's so many conversations swirling, and I just want to say thank you. I can't count how many people you have encouraged, my family and me and so many others. We stand with you. We support you. We love you. And we feel all of those. I just want to say thank you. It means the world, and we feel it. Have you ever seen this much change in behavior corporately in our country or in our church even in a 3-week period? It's been 3 weeks since we saw the video of the murder of George Floyd. 3 weeks. And think about how much has changed. Think about how many of our members have been out in the streets and up in arms, standing up against bigotry, against racism, standing up for equal justice under the law. And it's been so inspiring to see different posts and, seeing whole families and just this corporate expression of enough is enough. And that's so appropriate. It's obvious. Anything that's going on in the world that promotes life, that promotes love, that promotes the dignity of humanity is from God, and God is working. I think we would all agree that in our country, in our church, and around the world, God is working. There is something going on in the world. And so how do we be the hands and feet of Jesus? How do we meet this moment in the best way with the timeless message of the love of God and the salvation of Jesus and the power of the Holy Spirit? That's what we're wrestling with, which is why I wanted to have a conversation about where we are in this moment in time. And I feel as though we as a church and we are as individuals, we have been rocked to our core, and rightly so. And there have been radical changes, and we've stood up, and people have joined causes and donated money and expressed, hey, we cannot abide this. We have got to do better individually and as a country. We've got to end systemic racism and injustice and so forth. And we feel like, okay, I got it. But the truth is, none of us really have it yet. I mean, it's sinking in. And if you think about it, I think we're just at the beginning. If this were a baseball game, we would be in the beginning of the first inning. This is just the beginning. It's just the tip of the iceberg, literally. There's so much more. I feel like we're still in shock. I'm still landing. We're still landing with what in the world is going on? What in the world does all of this mean? And so, I feel the Spirit telling us, hey, make haste slowly. Don't rush to the next thing. Don't miss this moment. No. Now, I don't want you to forget what your main purpose is in the world. It's to lift up Jesus. It's to be his hands and feet. It's to be imitators of God. It's to be, the fragrance of God among the nations. We're not forgetting any of that. But the question is, how can we be that in the best way in this environment and climate? I'm always the guy, let's go. But I don't want us to miss this moment. And I'm saying to us, we are just at the beginning of the process. Our eyes have been opened, but we don't even get all that God is doing in us. We haven't even discovered and figured out how we feel exactly about all the different nuances of what is going on, let alone the church, let alone the world. George Floyd's funeral was just this past Tuesday. And so, it's been such a short amount of time, but you see what's happened in the world. It's just, this has caught the attention of the entire world. This is where the world is. And if this is where the men and women that we're to lay our lives down for and share the gospel with and love our neighbors, if this is where they are, we need to be there with them to help share the love of God. Of course, we've seen the new Black Lives Plaza in the past 3 weeks. The Black Lives Plaza area built in D.C. right in front of Lafayette Park. I don't know if it's on 16th Street or Pennsylvania Avenue, but right there leading up to the White House, where you got these huge yellow letters, 50-foot letters, Black Lives Matter. And it's so big you can see it from space. And then at night, there's a sort of a picture, a reflection of the letters that go on the building. And it's just such this declaration that this has got to end. It's a part of our national history. It's a national shame. It's got to end. And you see people all over the world saying the same thing. And by the way, what a glorious thing that we're saying that all over the world and in our country and nation. But what a sad thing that we have to say something so plainly evident as Black Lives Matter, just like all lives matter in 2020. It's both reason to celebrate and reason to mourn that we even have to say something that's so clearly self-evident. At that mural, there are also some other letters, another statement, and it's defund the police. So you got Black Lives Matter and then smaller letters, defund the police. And I know this has really given a pause to many of us because we're like, I'm for Black lives. Black lives do matter. Of course, we're not talking about neither of the major political candidates is talking about defunding the police. And it's been so great to see Mayor Garcetti in Los Angeles allocating more money to other municipal needs and really looking at police departments. I have never thought, have you, about, what's my local police department's philosophy? What's their practice about body cameras? What's their philosophy about chokeholds, about using of batons? How often are they reviewed? Are they reviewed by an independent body? Those kinds of things to root out police brutality. Those are good things, and we can stand for that. And so don't go for this false dichotomy. Don't fall for it. I think that this is progress being made. And of course, we have Rick Tyson. He is a great brother in our church. He and Casey, their girls, they are such great disciples. And he is an honorable, godly man that has one of the hardest jobs in the world, being a police officer in the metropolitan Los Angeles area. And so we salute him. We salute all of our other blue brothers and sisters. And yes, we have just countless police forces that serve and protect honorably and with distinction and look out for our citizens. And I've had great interactions with police. I've had many of you, and I've also been profiled. And so once again, more than one thing can be true. Two things can be true at the same time. You can have noble, honest police departments and police that serve and protect, and you can have others that countenance police brutality and are not accountable and that are systemically racist. So both can exist at the same time. All of these things are going on right now in all of our minds and in our neighbors' minds. And for us to meet this moment spiritually with the love of Jesus, we have got to pay attention to it. And I want us not to move past it or through it too fast. I want us to make haste slowly, and I want us to make sure we don't miss what God is doing in us. We're only 3 weeks in. It's just the tip of the iceberg. So to try to be the hands and feet of Jesus and to try to meet this moment, we're beginning a series called Salt. Salt. We want to be the salt in these situations. We want to be who Jesus called us to be. In the most famous sermon probably in the history of the world, the Sermon on the Mount, as recorded by one of his followers, Matthew, we read in Matthew chapter 5, verse 3, where Jesus identified his followers, his disciples, and he says, "You are the salt of the earth. But what good is salt if it's lost its flavor? Can you make it salty again? It'll be thrown out and trampled underfoot as worthless." He says, guys, I want you to identify yourself in a different way. You are the salt of the earth. You are that which preserves the purity of the earth. You are that which holds the Spirit of God on the earth. You are that which gives it flavor, which gives it clarity, which gives it a preservation, which protects what could rot. You keep this place from rotting. You inject God and His Spirit and His kingdom. You preach the kingdom and you bring His word to this world. And you need to be that. Salt without saltiness is not any good. A Christian without the passion to be a part of the solution and being passionate about introducing themselves and injecting themselves into the societal discourse of these days, that's not being the salt of the earth. And so we want to do that. Interestingly, the word salt comes from the word salarium, which is where we get the word salary from. And Roman soldiers in that time, first century, they were paid often in salt. Salt was more valuable than currency at different times because it was before refrigeration, and to keep meat and other foods from rotting, they would be preserved with salt. And it was so crucially important and added value and protected the purity of whatever it was injected in. And that's what Jesus has called us to do in 2020. We're supposed to not retreat from the world as they deal with stuff, but inject ourselves into the world. Many years later, Paul wrote to the church in Colossae. In Colossians 4, he says, "Be wise in the way that you act toward outsiders." And is there ever been a more timely passage than that? Now, right now, people are paying attention. People are wanting to see things happen, perhaps more open, at least to having a conversation than before. He says, "Make the most of every opportunity. Let your conversation be full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer everyone." Don't we all need to be more full of grace these days? It's so easy now for you to be offended by something I say or me to be offended by something you say, even not intending to, because we are on such a heightened and raw emotional state. And he says, I want your conversation to be full of grace, but seasoned with salt. In other words, tempered, flavored to produce the most good. And so as we begin our salt series, I want to share with you 4 ways that we are trying to be the salt of the earth. First, we're really excited about this. Starting next Sunday, during our Sunday gatherings online, our worship services, we want to have uncomfortable conversations. And what we're going to do is during the week, we're going to film uncomfortable conversations about race between brothers and sisters in the turning point of different races. And so our black brothers and sisters, our white brothers and sisters, our Asian, our Hispanic, our Middle Eastern, everybody having conversations where people from different races, from different backgrounds, go there and talk about issues that we typically don't talk about in terms of race, in terms of racism, in terms of prejudice, in terms of bigotry, outside of the church, perhaps even inside of the church. It's an opportunity for us. Maybe God can reveal parts of our heart that we didn't even know were there that can help us be more like Him. And so I want to encourage you, invite your friends. We live together at different races. Some people just kind of know people. We actually do life together, and it's harder. And it's a great opportunity for your friends and neighbors and mine to be able to come in and say, I can sit in on a Sunday and look at a real conversation about people who are living together in Jesus' body and in a Christian community dealing with this. Second thing we want to do is this Thursday, we want to have our first Defining Moments devotional. It's going to be online via Zoom, where we want to invite as many members of Turning Point to gather via Zoom virtually so that we can hear each other's stories, so that we can share, like John Thomas did so great, a defining moment in our life around the issue of race, something that we've experienced, a conversation that we had, something that was done to us, something that we saw or witnessed, perhaps that scarred us, perhaps that we're grieving. We are, by the way, I don't want us to move too fast through this because we are all still at different levels of grief and mourning. And I want us to, the worst thing you can do in a time of grief and loss and mourning is to move past it. We need to not move too fast past it. So that's what's going to happen this Thursday, and we'll give you more details on an email. Third thing we want to do is we want to choose one day a week for the next several weeks where we all pray and fast as a church, asking God to end systemic racism and injustice and police brutality in our nation. And it's a big ask, and it's way overdue. And we know that God is working, and we just want to partner with him with what he's doing in the world. And so we want to do that. And then the fourth thing we want to do, we thought about, and several members said, wouldn't it be great for us as a church to have a Turning Point protest, a Turning Point rally, some sort of public gathering where we can be a part of it, invite our family, invite our friends, and be emphatically for what God is for in a public sense, in a public way. We're not sure all the details or how it would work, but we would love to do that sometime in the not too distant future this summer. So stay tuned for that. And by the way, I know the temptation, we would be naive to think that there aren't political consequences and undertones and overtones regarding all of this conversation, but this is not a red versus blue issue. This is a right versus wrong issue. This is a truth versus lies issue. This is a good versus evil issue. This is a life versus death issue. And those are very clear. This is an oppressed versus oppressor issue. And it's very clear, yes, we need to choose a side. It's the side God chooses. It's very clear in those areas. We need to choose the side of life. We need to choose the side of truth. We need to choose the side of love and against hate and so forth and so on. So those are expressions of us trying to be the hands and feet of Jesus, trying to stand up, speak out against injustice for those who can't speak, and trying to be the salt of the earth and the light of the world. So I just wanted you to know that's how we're trying to go at this. And I would say to you, there's no textbook on this. A passage that means a lot to many of us is in Luke chapter 18, verse 9, I think it is, where Jesus tells a parable, and he says, to those who were confident in their own righteousness and look down on everybody else, it's the parable of the Pharisee and the tax collector. But I like to say to some who were confident in their own rightness. And sometimes you find Christians, we can be very confident in our own rightness. I know what's right. I know this is the right way. When in fact, I've got blind spots. These past few weeks have shown us we have some blind spots, right? And so I don't want us to be so confident in our rightness, we're doing this the right way, that we're not humble and open to blind spots. And so I want to be very strongly pro-God and pro-life and pro all those things, but I don't want to act as though, okay, we nailed it. We know exactly what to do to try to do this. We need to listen in humility to the Holy Spirit. So that's what's coming up. I do want to challenge you with a couple things as we close out. First thing I want to challenge you to do this week, I want to challenge you to have an uncomfortable conversation about race with someone of a different race. Someone in our church that is of a different race than you. And whatever question, maybe things you felt or thought that you've never said in other I want to challenge you. It's okay to be uncomfortable in these situations. We're not going to get to peace, no justice, no peace. We're not going to get to true peace and love without being willing to navigate discomfort. Okay, so that's the first thing I want to challenge you to do this week. The second thing I want to challenge you to do is invite a friend or a family member or a coworker to tune in next Sunday to listen in to one of our uncomfortable conversations around race. God bless you.